So I'm Dennis Daly. I'm the producer for Hit.Show. It's a 10-minute daily newscast, audio newscast about your top healthcare business headlines. And if any of you have news to share, I encourage you to reach out at Hit.Show. I'm really excited for today's panel with Tom Newcomer. Tom, tell them a little bit about yourself.
So good morning, everybody. My name's Tom Newcomer. I currently lead U.S. commercial operations for Samsung Bioepis. So Samsung Bioepis is one of the many Samsung companies. Previous to joining Samsung 5 years ago to begin their commercial division in the U.S., I worked 20 plus years at a large U.S. manufacturer who ironically worked with biosimilar products towards the end of my time there. And I fell in love with the concept of biosimilars and what they mean to the U.S. marketplace. Therefore, I made the transition over to Samsung to hopefully continue this journey.
Thanks, Tom. So a lot of people here in the audience might know what biosimilars are. Some people probably don't know. I wasn't really familiar with biosimilars especially in thinking about what is Samsung and what Samsung does. So could you just tell us what are biosimilars and how are they doing in the United States?
Yeah. This question comes up often in my daily life, and I'm going to answer the first part. The first part is Samsung, and everybody always has a curious look in their face because everybody thinks about phones and TVs, and I think the U.S. marketplace is not very aware that there are many Samsung companies across the globe, and there is a large presence through Samsung into biopharma. Samsung's actually one of the largest manufacturers on a CMO basis of products throughout the globe, where Samsung makes many of the products that you see and use on a daily basis for other companies. Then on the research and development end, we have Samsung Bioepis, which is the division that I represent. So we develop, manufacture, and then supply the products to the different marketplaces across the globe. We use, of course, all the expertise of Samsung Quality on the biopharma end, the Samsung supply chain, which is used through all the other divisions of Samsung to bring these products to the markets in an efficient and quality manner. Now, as far as biosimilars, that is really a good gap that we could talk about today because I realize there are various stakeholders in the room and biosimilars may not be a topic that reaches your daily life, but it's one that should. So everybody in this room is very well aware of the term a generic. And when you go to the pharmacy, I go to the pharmacy, your parents, my parents, when I go to the pharmacy, it's almost a guarantee you're going to be asked if you want to be on a generic first, because it's what? It's less cost. So they're going to give you that option. It's good for you. It's good for the employer that's paying for your health plan. It's good for the health plan itself. It's good at the PBM. It's good for everybody. Biosimilars, unfortunately, are not at that level of awareness yet in the US market, but it's essentially the same concept. So biosimilar really is the generic for a specialty biologic. And when I say specialty biologic, the major difference is you're talking about a product that is made from a living organism or living cell, opposed to a small molecule that is being made from ingredients. Now, the difference there is when you bring a biosimilar to the US market, it can cost $100 million to $300 million in development costs, where a generic is nowhere near that. But the benefit to everybody is you're going to see the same cost-saving thresholds percentage-wise that you would with the generic.
So we're seeing that it's substantial cost savings. So how are they doing in the market? I would imagine that everybody's using these, right?
Not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Tell us about that.
So biosimilars have been out for 10 years in the US marketplace. And it really, really depends on the therapeutic category on what the adoption rate is like. And there are many dynamics, and I hope to hit on a couple of them today to describe how the biosimilars are doing and maybe where some of the roadblocks are. I would say we could start from a very high level, and I can actually graphically show it, on what has happened since the biosimilars have come to market over the last 10 years. So this is an excerpt from a non-promotional, non-branded report that Samsung Bioepis puts out quarterly in the US market. It's called the Samsung Bioepis Biosimilar Report. In this report, we track the biosimilar market across every therapeutic category and post, hey, what are the cost savings to the US market? What does this mean to all stakeholders? And if you look in here, and I apologize to those in the back because I realize that it's a little bit hard to read the fine lines, but when you look at this, basically what it says is, if you look 5 years after these products are launched, the cost goes down in that category around 52%. So these are products that don't cost $50, $100, $200. These are products that cost $8,000, $10,000, $17,000 a course of therapy. So we've already shown in the US that there's been over 50% reduction in cost. And we put this out quarterly. As soon as the reporting comes out through CMS, our team compiles it and puts it out so it's in one easy to find place. We know through these cost savings that biosimilars have saved the US marketplace $56 billion to date. $56 billion. So that is a tremendous amount of money. The problem is they're underutilized. That number should be drastically higher than what it is right now. There are certain disease categories where there has been rapid uptake. Oncology is definitely one. Supportive care in oncology has definitely been one, where you will see very high market penetration. When you see that, there's definitely cost savings. Some of the therapeutic areas that would be considered more chronic in nature or continuous therapy, those are the ones that are slower to see change. We just see patients continue on the originator or the reference product month after month, which to the patient means they could be paying hundreds to thousands of dollars more every month. There's no reason for it.
So, I mean, there has to be some reason that there's not been a broader adoption, and probably several reasons, right? I mean, if you're saying it's the number one way to reduce costs for patients, I mean, $56 billion sounds like a lot of money, but it seems like it could be a lot more, right? Well, so why don't we hear things like biosimilar first? Like, generic first, you get that generic reference to reduce costs. Why don't we see that in practice?
It's two main reasons. Number one is what I spoke about is awareness. And for those of you that are patient stakeholders that are facing the patient on a daily basis, whatever your role may be, if you're not having that conversation about biosimilars when there's a biosimilar available, then there's a gap at that level. We know there's a gap at that level. It could be for a variety of reasons, but there is a large awareness that that is a gap from an awareness standpoint. The largest reason is misaligned incentives. And this is something that comes up routinely in the US marketplace. And it is a dynamic that is only relevant in the US marketplace. And what I mean by misaligned incentives is there are many facets of the US healthcare system where the stakeholder, whoever they may be, are incentivized to use the higher dollar product. So I just had this happen to me last week where I was in a conversation with a specialty pharmacy and we were talking about biosimilars in general. And they were very clear with me that they are sticking with the originator product because that is where the return is for them financially. The percentage is on the higher priced product. So we're going to need to get to a point in the US healthcare system where the reimbursement dynamics change. We need entities to become novel in the way they approach this. And this happened years ago in the generic industry as well, where there used to be scorecards, and there still is scorecards on generic utilization. And the more generic utilization there was, the higher the reimbursement went up. We need to get to a system of that sort with biosimilars. There needs to be a shared savings component because there is lots of money out there to save and to bring down the cost of healthcare in the US. We just have to figure it out so that all stakeholders benefit from it.
So you're saying a change in policy, but also sort of some activation on the part of these stakeholders. What does that look like?
It starts on several levels. Number one, I would say governmental. and the government has taken some steps to incentivize biosimilars. Those that are out there that are reimbursed on ASP dynamics, you'll see in most cases, biosimilars are reimbursed not at our less expensive cost from an ASP perspective, the ASP plus 6 historically, it's a ASP plus whatever the cost is of the ASP on the originator. So it's actually the originator's cost that is calculated in to try to keep remuneration steady for the provider level. So we've seen some aspects, but we haven't seen enough. There is an opportunity for shared savings, which has been discussed, but it seems like nobody has figured out how to jump into the pool and take the full leap. But those that do, there's going to be advantages to that. Overall, from a hierarchy standpoint, it needs to be a biosimilar first strategy. And that starts really at the PBM level when the formularies are developed. It needs to be the health plan that hires the PBM to manage their formulary, demanding that they get the biosimilar first policy. It needs to be the employer groups that are paying for the health insurance who are saying, why am I paying so much for reference products when I could be using these biosimilars that have now been out for up to 10 years? Those things need to happen because remember, most patients pay a percentage of the cost. So if you're paying a percentage on a product that is 90% off the originator's WAC, you're paying pennies on the dollar versus what you would pay for the originator.
We're talking about different stakeholders here, and I'm just curious, and I really appreciate audience participation. Show of hands, how many people in the audience are representing provider organizations? And payers? And are there employer groups represented here? And from the pharmaceutical industry? A few. So, Tom, what does the future look like? If we're here a year from now, are we still talking about this being a problem? What's the roadmap forward?
It is a problem right now. Adoption is not where it needs to be for long-term success. We need to see adoption expedited, which has to happen, at the ground level. We need to see biosimilars put into the marketplace. It's going to take all the other entities that you kind of just asked about to push for that in order for that to happen. What we're seeing, and I think most people in the room probably do not have an awareness to this, is there is a pending problem with biosimilars in the next 5 years to 10 years. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have a large number of specialty biologics go off patent. When I say large number, it's over 100. I think specifically it's probably around 118 that are going off patent. Over 90% of those no longer have a biosimilar in development. The reason they don't have a biosimilar in development is because manufacturers cannot see the return on the investment currently. So a manufacturer is not going to lose money. Like I said, it's $100 million to $300 million to bring one of these to market. If they're not going to recoup those costs, they're not going to continue investing. So what's happening right now, you have 3 or 4 large US manufacturers that have completely pulled out of R&D on biosimilars. They're done. They're walking away. They're going to concentrate on novels. You have some that have pulled select products from the market because they didn't see the return on investment to make their money back. So it was easier just to cut ties. Those examples of rockiness have led to others not investing in what is going to be a massive opportunity for biosimilars over the next 5 to 10 years. If you think about the largest spend products in your life right now and what you do every day, some of those have a biosimilar. I would say the top 2 do. The rest probably do not. We need to change that so that there are biosimilars to come out to challenge them. Because if we don't challenge them, then it's going to continue to have high prices year over year over year, and the healthcare system is never going to reduce in cost. So we need to see better utilization so that we can keep investing in this area and then keep seeing the savings over the long run.
Tom, we saw a lot of hands go up, people from provider organizations here, and I think you talked about awareness, and that's two different levels. So the message, what I'm hearing you say is that at the system level, there needs to be pushing awareness to the providers, directly to the HCPs, that to let them know that if there's an option available, and then also at their PBM contracting level. Does that sound right?
That's exactly right. So, I mean, when you go home from this conference, and depending on what your specialty is, if somebody's on infliximab, they may have been on there for years. There's no reason why we shouldn't be asking, is there a biosimilar that could be used for that patient? A biosimilar, by definition, is highly similar to the originator with no meaningful clinical difference. The difference is the cost to the patient, the cost to the health plan, the cost to the employer. We could be reducing the cost tomorrow for that class, which is then reducing the cost for everybody and enabling those dollars to go elsewhere. That is step one. Step two is those that are programming EMRs on what is preferred, that needs to be in there. Is there a biosimilar first? The biosimilar is always going to be cheaper to everybody. It's always going to be significantly cheaper. I mean, in some instances right now in the pharmacy benefit, you're up to 92, 94% off of originator WAC right out of the door. And that's before any other discount. So the second part to your question is we need to challenge back to those that are making these decisions on what's being covered, on whether the biosimilar is a viable option.
Our reference monitors are a little off kilter here. I just want to ask, are there questions from the audience? You can push them through the app where we could see them. Josh, do you have questions coming in? Okay. Well, as we started out, Samsung is well known for their consumer electronics devices. Mm-hmm. They're known somewhat in the healthcare world, business to business products. What is the one thing that you would want people to most remember from this conversation, and especially relevant? What do you want them to remember about Samsung?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question because the awareness in general is not there as far as Samsung and biopharmaceuticals. And if I kind of take a step back, Samsung made a conscious decision years ago to invest in two areas primarily, where they saw a need in the global markets where they can make a difference. One is microchips. So always a need in the globe for microchips. If anybody lives in Texas, you may be very familiar with Samsung's work in microchips in the Texas area. The other one's biopharma. So Samsung invested a lot of money into biopharma so they can contribute to the overall reduction of healthcare spend. We're doing that to make the process more efficient for all stakeholders, for the longevity of the system. And we just need adoption, not just for us, for all biosimilars in order to see that vision come through. And I think that's what it is. A lot of times, and there's probably sessions today, we will hear key stakeholders talk about, hey, what are the implications of tariffs? What's going on with MFN? What's going on with the IRA? Those are all very important questions. But the one thing that I leave you with is we have a tool in our toolbox right now that has been there for now 10 years, but most people don't know that tool is in there. Those that do have helped contribute to the savings of over $50 billion. Those who are not aware, I ask you to be aware to drive that number up. And if anybody has questions, I think moving forward and you want to look more into this, I do want to make sure from a slide perspective, if I can get this on here, we do put out a quarterly report. Let me see if this works. There we go. If you want to scan that in, again, this is a non-promotional guide into what's going on with every biosimilar in the US market. So if you want to see, hey, what are the cost savings for the biosimilars that are out there? It will show you quarterly where the cost savings are. If you want to see what the utilization trends are, you can also see the utilization trends. So that is one thing that is very, I would say, specific to this report versus like just going to Medispan or CMS to check pricing out. This is going to show you both ends of it. So I would encourage you to look at this. There's also expert opinions on relevant topics every month. It's non-promotional. We think you'll find a lot of value in it in your decision making.
I would say feel free to continue the conversation during the networking sessions or get with either one of us on LinkedIn. Tom, I want to congratulate you on the work you're doing, and thanks for the session.
Thank you. Appreciate it.